This week on Streaming Star Wars with Ammo and Fletzer, we preview all things Disney Plus Star Wars with our special guest, Anthony Breznican. We take your questions and comments in the live chat, and we give away our first Mandalorian bounty. Live streaming is a complicated profession. Don't you agree?
Streaming Star Wars is now online, episode number 1. We are here with you on this Friday night. I'm David Amalotti. I'm one of your hosts, but I'm Ammo. He's Fletzer, and here we are having this Star Wars conversation. It almost doesn't feel real. I'm like trying to grasp out in monitors and microphones just to make sure that we're actually here in this moment together. Pete, how are you on this Friday, November 8th of 2019?
I am really excited. You and I have been talking about getting this together for quite a while, and it was nice of Disney to create an entire streaming service so that you and I could build a show together. This is fantastic, but man, there's so much to talk about, and we're just we haven't even gotten our subscription started yet.
That's true. I'm waiting until the 12th so that way I can get the bundle with Hulu and with ESPN Plus. I just want to make sure that everyone who is just now joining us for this episode 1 of Streaming Star Wars with Ammo and Fletzer, you can always catch us live on Friday night. Might always vary time-wise just because we're not sure how future shows will release. But Friday night here on Beyond the Blast Doors YouTube channel. If you can't join us live, you can always catch us on the rewind here on the same channel. But let's say you prefer the audio podcast version. Maybe because you're a fan of Around the Galaxy, that's how you know Pete Fletzer, or maybe you know him because he originally showed up on Beyond the Blast Doors. I'm just saying. The point being here is you can get that podcast stream on SoundCloud, but you can also, anywhere you can listen to Around the Galaxy podcast, you'll be able to find the podcast version of this show. So we want to make sure that you know about that, and also we want to make sure that you know about Twitter. You can always follow us on Streaming Star Wars, at Streaming SW, and we post like news, and Pete, you're always posting out polls and jokes. We're very interactive on Twitter.
That's probably the best place to spend time with us. We spend more time on Twitter than with our families. I think it's not something to be proud of, but it is a lot of fun. And it's also, as David was saying, the schedule for Disney Plus is it's mostly every Friday, but it's going to be a little different. And so our schedule is going to be varying just a little bit too.
I don't know about you. I think the missus is home for you. My girlfriend, she left. She's 2 hours away. She just left the house. I told her, hey, we're doing a live show tonight, episode 1. And she's like, all right, I'm going to go see the family. I said, all right, everyone makes their own decision in life.
Probably not a bad idea. Yeah. That's why I recommended 10 o'clock for us on a Friday night because, I've got 2 kids and not much happening on Friday night. There's nothing I'd rather do than talk about Star Wars on a Friday night.
So let's go ahead and before we dive into kind of like the opening topic, and this is something that we'll be doing every week when we get together. It'll kind of be maybe like the latest news item or just the big topic that's impacting fans and Star Wars content on Disney Plus. But before we do that, Pete, let's go ahead. We'll give a live shout out to those hanging out in the live chat with us here on episode 1. And it looks like we have quite the row gallery with us already. We have Hollow Chronicles, the guys over there, Andy and Josh. Andy's with us at least from Hollow Chronicles. We got 2Med2, Donald Blake, and who would
Charlie Skywalker. Yeah.
So we got a good crew already here in the live chat. We got Rural Farm Boy, Vernon Johnson, Abel Lusk, Rick. The whole crew's there, and more people are joining. So really glad that you're with us here for episode 1, Streaming Star Wars. I'm Ammo, he's Fletzer. And let's go ahead and just talk about this. The fact that we're getting, in 4 days, the very first piece of live-action Star Wars storytelling TV form. And it feels like there's like this energy. Even while we're talking about it in this moment, I'm getting goosebumps because it's hard to believe. We thought we were going to get a live-action series eons ago, apparently 100 scripts that George Lucas had written. But this is The Mandalorian. This is Disney Plus, dropping November 12th. Pete, don't you feel like the hype here is like a movie? Don't you feel like it has to be a home run on Tuesday when this episode drops?
It's interesting you say that because, to me, as I've been, watching the Twitter stream and watching everything happening in our Star Wars community, like it almost feels like at this point, I've almost Rise of Skywalker feels much further out. I feel like the hype for Mandalorian has taken over it a little bit. There's been some articles by some guy in Vanity Fair that have sort of gotten everybody's attention as well. But it just feels like the hype level right now for Mandalorian is, frankly, probably more than it was for Solo. But I think what this raises, the question that this raises from a Disney Plus and future of the franchise is, what is television versions of Star Wars, streaming versions of Star Wars, going to mean for the Star Wars movies moving forward? Are we can streaming replace the films? Can a series like this, look, think about it this way. I posted this the other day. You're going to pay $7 a month for Disney Plus. Not only are you going to get every Star Wars movie other than one at the outset, but you're going to get them all eventually. Some additional Star Wars content. You're going to get the series. You're going to have everything that Disney's ever made. You're going to pay $7 a month, which is less than you're going to pay for a Coke when you go see The Rise of Skywalker. You're going to have access to what's essentially 8+ hours of new Star Wars content. That's like getting a new trilogy as part of this package. And I think it's going to change the way we look at Star Wars.
I think you're absolutely right. And it's because I think the amount of time we get to spend with these characters, that serialized once a week adventure that we get to go. And this is the version of Star Wars storytelling that George Lucas had envisioned from arguably the very beginning. I mean, I know that I mentioned it just a moment ago, but George was looking at trying to do something where it was episodic on a weekly basis. 100-something scripts were in development for that. And it didn't happen, and for whatever reason that could have been. You could say that maybe that this was a situation where George was once again ahead of where technology was. Because remember the prequels. I think that's a trilogy that happens maybe 10 years earlier if you have the technology that you had in 97, 98, 99, allowing him to ultimately do that prequel trilogy. You don't have the opportunity to do the live-action Star Wars in 2008-ish, as you can do now. And this is technology that has been honed by Jon Favreau and Disney. I think of The Lion King. I think of The Jungle Book. A lot of similar technology used for those films will be utilized here for this series. And we talk about The Mandalorian. Again, this is a nice batch of episodes, and we're dealing with a high budget, $100 million to do this first season. And we know the production on season number 2 is already underway. And so it's going to be a real thrill to see just how far they can push storytelling, because I think audiences that watched Game of Thrones were blown away. That was a full feature film, for every episode. And I think Mandalorian is going to push those bounds even further.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Without the types of series that HBO has been able to bring together, we're in a spot where Game of Thrones really made it apparent that you can create feature type television, and frankly, Star Wars in anything other than feature type quality is not the quality that I think Lucasfilm is willing to settle for. So I'm excited from what we've seen from the clips, from the screens we've seen, the trailers. Again, as I was saying, the hype couldn't be higher if it was a major motion picture. So
it kind of feels like when a theatrical release does drop, though, because I don't know if you go back to like Force Awakens or The Last Jedi, it seemed like 47 TV spots dropped within the last 10 days. And I feel like every hour and a half, it's like, here's a new TV spot with this shot of troopers on speeder bikes, and here's this new shot of blurgs, and here's this new shot of the Mandalorian shooting some guy or pulling him through the door. So it's just fun. It's fun to feel the energy. I will say, though, it's, I believe, 6 a.m. Pacific time is when the first episode drops on Tuesday. I will double check that, but I'm pretty confident it is 6 a.m. Tuesday Pacific time. I don't know how clearly articulated that has been from Disney or Lucasfilm, whoever you want to point fingers as who should be doing that. I know there's a social media campaign. I know that we're getting these spots saying, hey, Tuesday, but the exact drop date isn't getting out there, and I hope that maybe in the next couple of days that clarity happens. But also maybe that's something that we can do as shows here on YouTube with our viewing audience, so we can let them know we can help in that way. So very cool. Before we go on, we just want to know that if you're watching with us in this moment live on Streaming Star Wars with Ammo and Fletzer, let us know down in the live chat What do you feel is the excitement level surrounding The Mandalorian as we're only a handful of days away, less than a handful if you think about it? What's your excitement level for The Mandalorian? And really, anything on Disney Plus compared to Rise of Skywalker. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how this morphs Star Wars storytelling, because it is going to be completely different from here moving forward. Star Wars storytelling forever changes on Tuesday. So that's for our opening topic, and we don't want to make our guests wait any further, and I know that Pete is really excited about this. I'm really excited about this. We've been tweeting all for the last week, 10 days about tonight, and so we're really excited to kick off what we hope is a very, very long run of streaming Star Wars. We're joined now on Streaming Star Wars, lead entertainment reporter for Vanity Fair. He is one that seems to have everyone at Lucasfilm, everybody that you see on the big screen, their speed dial on his phone. He's helping us kick off our show. He's hosting a new show himself, still watching The Mandalorian with Joe Robinson. Anthony Breznican joins us now on Streaming Star Wars. Anthony, thanks for giving us some of your time. How are you doing, man?
It's a pleasure to be here. I had a moment where I thought you said the late Vanity Fair writer, and I think you said I'm one of the lead Vanity Fair writers, and I'm still getting used to that idea. I'm just glad I'm not deceased.
No, absolutely not. I said lead entertainment reporter. I think I took that straight off of your Twitter. So, yeah, no mistake there. You are quite alive, and you're joining myself and Pete, and we're just so overwhelmed with joy that you can join us. Just right off the top, just your excitement level, man. A couple days away from The Mandalorian dropping on Tuesday.
Oh, I mean, massively excited. This is the first live-action Star Wars series, and it looks wonderful. As you guys were just saying, it looks cinematic, so that's what you want. And everything I've learned from talking to the people who've worked on it has only made me more excited, eager to see it. But there's also a lot that they've kept under wraps, even from those of us who are sometimes trusted with secrets. So I think we're going to get some big surprises from what The Mandalorian turns out to be.
That's excellent. So, Anthony, thank you very much for joining us. Let's start here, though. You dropped an article yesterday about Dave Filoni, which I was incredibly happy to read. Dave, is the unsung hero in Star Wars. He's really the keeper of the Star Wars flame. Your article is, to me, kind of a coming out party for him, so that the more common fan gets to know who he is. I mean, there's Star Wars nerds like us. A lot of the people in the chat probably know who he is. But a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to get to know really the guy who's keeping Star Wars alive and bringing Star Wars to us in the form that it's been over the last several series. So tell us, maybe what's one thing that didn't make it to the article that really stood out to you about Dave Filoni?
One thing that didn't make it into the article, and this will be in a future article, so I'll tell you about that.
It's a preview, nice.
A little preview of something I'm dropping on Monday. And he talked about the relationship between The Mandalorian and previous Star Wars storytelling. We all know The Mandalorian resembles Boba Fett. It's the same kind of armor, same kind of mask. I mean, with a different style to it, but a similar look. And you're seeing IG-11 voiced by Taika Waititi instead of IG-88. And you're seeing Trandoshan aliens who look like Bosk, and all sorts of things that look like things we've seen in the past, but are actually new characters. And he talked about the respect he has for not just the fans who've consumed earlier storytelling. Like he and I talked about, well, why not use IG-88? You could, conceivably. And he talked about trying to respect fan experience with those earlier stories, even things that aren't necessarily stories that are told on screen, but are told in comics or in novels or in short stories. And he said those stories mean something to people, and they mean something especially to the people who created them. And I think he's been a guy who, in Star Wars and Rebels, has kind of been recanonizing a lot of things that were part of the Star Wars Legends universe, bringing back Thrawn, bringing back all sorts of even smaller elements of those stories. I mean, he does things like, wasn't there an episode of Rebels where the wings of the foils of the TIE Fighter blew off, which are very similar to, that's what happens with the actual Hasbro toys or the Kenner toys. They had those foils that would pop off, break, because otherwise you'd have a broken toy instantly. So this is a guy who cares a lot about other Star Wars storytellers and is trying to find a way to continue to unify that and these decades of storytelling while also giving us something brand new, which we absolutely need, or else this franchise dries up.
Well, I want to actually touch on that, Anthony, because I love the reverence that he has for those EU characters and allowing this to be an opportunity to create new characters but still have that familiar touch. As you mentioned, what's your take, though? Because I think a lot of fans might look at the EU as an opportunity for future films, future TV projects where, you know, we could pull from there or we could retell those stories. I mean, I think with a Kenobi series coming out, one of the more popular EU books within the last decade would be that Kenobi novel that came out. And so do you think that it's for the better that we nitpick what we like from the EU and bring them back in, or to use like a IG 11 compared to a IG 88? Is it better to nitpick like that or and do brand new storytelling like we're getting with Mandalorian? Or would you like to see some of those EU properties brought back, like a Dark Plagueis novel, and have that turned into a multi-episode series or movie?
I'm open to both. I'm curious to see how it will work in Mandalorian, because I think there's the potential for people feeling like, oh, this is like a knockoff in a way of Star Wars, because it's not the traditional characters, you know. And it really is something that Lucasfilm is doing to try to test the resilience of its storytelling and its world building. It's, can this world expand beyond the core characters? You know, that's something that every major franchise has to deal with. How far can Marvel stretch? How far can the Harry Potter universe stretch before it stops feeling like the thing that you actually care about? And so much of what we care about are the human beings or the droids or the characters, whatever they are, the personalities that are at the center of these stories. So I think it's really, it's an exploratory effort, really, The Mandalorian, to see, can we give you something that looks and feels familiar but is actually different? And then how far beyond that can we go? Because you have characters like Fennec Shan, who's played by Ming Na, who's an entirely original character, doesn't necessarily resemble anyone else we've seen in the past, has kind of the Star Wars unique otherworldly hairstyle, but but is otherwise brand new. And I think I'm really excited to see characters like her, and I like that they're interwoven with figures like the Mandalorian, who, you know, has that cool look that we liked so much with Boba Fett. I mean, there's a lot of debate about Boba Fett, right? Is he a cool character, or is he a cool looking character? And I don't know. I could see both. You know, I could see both.
And
But either way, I think they're really testing the boundaries of what Star Wars can be with this show.
and we're just lucky to live in this time where we can witness to see how it all comes together. You mentioned Ming-Na Wen's character, Fennec Shand, and I'd like to ask you, I mean, I want to talk about that character because she's an awesome first for the Star Wars franchise. But can you kind of peel back the curtain here? How does a story like this drop for you? Is this a situation where Lucasfilm reaches out and say, hey, we want to drop this story and we want you to drop this with Vanity Fair? Or is this a situation where you're working your contacts and you're able to break the exclusive?
Well, I don't want to reveal too much of my super secret methods, but I can tell you, it's not something I just, you know, found on the street. It would be more like I'm talking to my longtime contacts at Lucasfilm and at Disney, and you know, a lot of people have to sign off before they'll open the door on some of these things. And a big part of what I do is try to identify things that I think fans want to know, but also try to identify things that I think fans don't want to know, so that I don't stumble in and pitch some spoilers their way that they're not interested in hearing. So Ming-Na Wen is in The Mandalorian. We've known that for some time. We haven't seen her. And one of the things that made me really happy was that when that story dropped and we got the first look at her, and not just a first look, but the teaser video that includes her saying a pretty cool line, I was happy to see that people were excited to see her face, that there was no guarantee that she was going to play a human, that she would play herself, that she might be a voice, sort of like Nick Nolte is voicing this Ugnaught character.
Right.
Taika Waititi is voicing a droid character. So who was Ming-Na Wen going to play? and we get to see that she's an actual like person in the universe. And I think people who love her and care about her, from Mulan to ER to Agents of Shield, uh, they were thrilled by that. So, like my reporting process would be, hey, I would love to break some news about Mandalorian. I know this is a piece that hasn't been revealed yet. I think Vanity Fair would be a good platform for it. We've worked really hard to cultivate a good relationship with readers and with fans, and I think we bring a level of class and hopefully some coolness. I don't have the coolness, but the brand Vanity Fair has the coolness. Um, it's me making the case for why they should, open the door and show us one of the secrets of the show. Now, the other side of that is it could be that her character is an important reveal as part of the narrative, and in that case, okay, well then I guess you'll leave that to the show to reveal. There's a new movie opening this weekend, Doctor Sleep, that has some cool twists and appearances and spoilers in it, but it's nothing I can talk about until you see it. And then
Right.
once you see it, then I can put my story out explaining why they did it that way and who that was and what was going on there in the minds of the creators. So Ming Na Wen turned out to be something that they were, okay, let's talk about her. Maybe that's a cool thing that we can do. And, we negotiate the time and the place. And the one piece of it that was a total surprise was they had the video element, which I was like, okay, great. That's very cool. So that was just the cherry on top. So does that give you a bit of perspective? A lot of reporting is the journalist in this type of reporting is me trying to make the case, trying to pick the lock, and you either get shut down or you get welcomed in. And in the meantime, I'm coming up with stories about the Mandalorian that could be done not necessarily without any type of interview or cooperation, but that can be done that aren't necessarily reveals. I'm trying to look at the show and figure out what will people want to talk about. And one of the subjects is the familiarity of it that I just spoke about. And that's a piece I've been gathering string on for quite a while, talking to Taika Waititi, talking to Dave Filoni, talking to Jon Favreau about why they made this the way they did, why they made something familiar that's actually about strangers.
But speaking of familiarity, the Kenobi series continues to get a lot of attention, and a lot of people are really excited about what we can expect to see in a Kenobi series. The timeline we've been given, though, is that the show is going to hit Disney in around 2020, Disney Plus around 2020. You might have more of an up close and personal seat to that. So, is that timeline realistic? Do you think we're going to see Kenobi in 2020 or 2021? Do you have any insight as to the schedule? Because there are, we know of 4 total series, and of course the second season already planned for Mandalorian. I guess ultimately is Kenobi a 2020 series or 2021? Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's in 2020, and I'm inclined to believe that. If you think about the Mandalorian, we only got casting news on the Mandalorian, like, was it February or March?
Right.
So that show came together relatively quickly, and you get a professional crew on a production like that, they can move fast, and they've been working on the scripts and the plan for quite some time. That's a project that's been rumored and considered for ages. So I think they're, you never know, there could always be hiccups, delays, and postponements, and we've seen that happen with Star Wars projects of the past. But it could, I think, yeah, very likely could turn out to be. I mean, hey, speaking of Dr. Sleep with Ewan McGregor, do you see those photos of him lately?
He's bearded up and ready to go, right?
Yeah, like Guinness.
I'm working my own here. If they need a little extra, I can step in.
Be Obi-Wan's brother.
Right, I'll be old Obi-Wan. He can.
Obi-2 Kenobi.
Obi-2.
A bad joke.
Well, hey, real quick, while we're just on Obi-Wan, real quick, for that series, we can all speculate about what we think that story being or not, but maybe there has been some speculation on what characters could pop up. Anthony, while I have you, can I put you on the spot? Can you tell us whether you think Vader will or will not show up in the Kenobi series?
Will he or won't he? I don't know. So anything I say would be speculation.
Oh, of
I
course.
think why not?
Mhm.
You know, if you have Darth Vader and you want to use him more, that's a perfect opportunity to do it. Now, wouldn't Vader? Is there anything about the original 1977 Star Wars that implies that Vader hasn't seen Obi-Wan since his transformation?
Well,
I can't.
you go back to New Hope, right? And there's that line about, the last time I met you, I was a learner, but now I'm the master. And I think that we all have, especially with the prequels, we've come to believe that that was in reference to Revenge of the Sith. And it would only make sense, right? Kenobi leaves him there burning on the side there on side of the hill on Mustafar. But some believe that maybe there was another run-in to give Vader reason that Kenobi is still out there. But I always perceived it as it had been 20 years, almost 20 years since the two came together. It would kind of be cool to see a mid-aged Kenobi, I guess, go up against still a young, developing Vader in his suit and all.
But there is also that other moment where Vader goes, "I've sensed a presence that I haven't felt since."
Right.
Then he doesn't
Right.
say since. He just storms away. And I'm sure that at the time that was written, nobody was thinking about the year 2019,
No.
so
Yeah.
or beyond. So I think there's always a possibility. I'm interested. What's the rumor that Owen Lars turns up? That's kind of cool.
That would be fun, and that would be a lot of fun, and it would be interesting to explore maybe the relationship between Kenobi and Lars, because there's like that hint that Owen. I think in the comics it was explored that Owen just really cared about the baby Luke, and if he was going to raise that child, he was going to raise that child his way, and he wasn't going to let an old wizard corrupt that child. So that would be kind of a fun dynamic to go with. It's almost like romance, right? You don't want it to be like the main focus of the series, but it could be, the seasoning of the meat, so to say. It could really amplify how we get to know these characters, right?
Well, there's this implication that Owen is somehow soft. That he's this moisture farmer, that he's not tough, that he's caring for Luke, but it's sort of like that there's a sense of weakness about him. And one of my favorite comics, I don't believe it's canon, but it was a book called Visionaries, and they allowed some concept artists to just present cool images that they'd concocted that didn't actually get used in any of the movies. And there were a couple of narrative stories in this collection as well. And one of them was about Obi-Wan, middle-aged Obi-Wan looking after young Luke. Luke was just a little kid running around, and it presaged the Rebels storyline with Darth Maul returning to Tatooine and having his final confrontation with Obi-Wan by several years, by maybe more than 10 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And what I loved about this book was Darth Maul and middle-aged Obi-Wan have this throwdown. They have a lightsaber battle, and Maul gets the upper hand. I think he even has the mechanical crab legs, and he's about to take down Obi-Wan. He's about to kill him, and then a blaster hits him from outside the panel, and he just gets wasted by Uncle Owen. And I thought that was a cool twist to show that Uncle Owen could toughen up if he had to.
A really cool moment.
He wasn't entirely afraid.
Really
So anyway,
yeah. I guess I'm thinking about Disney Plus again in the sense that we have Mandalorian on Tuesday. Kenobi is now confirmed. Casseon Andor, we believe, is still in production. We can talk about that later. But we're getting no word about Clone Wars, and I know that it drops early in 2020. So have you heard anything about everything is going according to plan? We're just waiting for Mandalorian Rise of Skywalker to drop so that we can start promoting the Clone Wars. Can you talk more about that?
That's exactly what I've heard. It's just not time to sell Clone Wars because it's 4 months out. So, they have a lot coming in between now and Clone Wars. And when I say 4 months, I don't know that there's even been a release date named for it, but that it's early 2020. So let's say it comes out in that first quarter. Yeah, we'll get to that probably. You'll start seeing that ramp up. In a couple of months, maybe you'll get a teaser or something. That's my guess. And then you'll hear a whole lot more about it after the new year. Hopefully from me. That's
Well,
definitely one of the things that I'm working on now is trying to figure out what's next with the Clone Wars.
I'm personally, it's funny when Clone Wars hit. Initially, I think a number of people, it took them a little bit of time to warm up to that series. Me personally, but then it's become such a part of what Star Wars means to people. So I'm really excited about that. But we also talked about Cassian, and that's a character that some say the story is kind of limited, or but there's such an interesting background to him in the canon as far as he's the son of separatists, and the way that the Rogue One film sort of showcased a nitty gritty side of the Star Wars story. What's your hope for the Cassian series when that hits?
I'd like a sense of genre within Star Wars. I would like a spy movie set in Star Wars. I mean, I'd like a horror movie set within the realm of Star Wars, or movie, story, TV show, what have you. What I love most about the Mandalorian are all the Western movie motifs that it takes on. There's a scene at the beginning of Mandalorian, the opening sequence, when he shows up at this windblown little tavern, and he goes in through the iris door, which is like the bat wings door in the old west, and you hear this music, and it's like I don't know what the instrument is, a little flute or something, but it has this little trill. It's a lot like the ocarina whistle in the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly theme song, and I love that. It conjures a lot of, again, familiarity with Sergio Leone westerns, with Clint Eastwood movies like The Outlaw Josie Wales and Fistful of Dollars. And what I want out of Cassian is I would love for this to feel like Casino Royale 007 in outer space.
Yeah, I could definitely, I think that's, I hadn't watched Rogue One for a little bit. It's really become kind of a big, one of my favorites, for no other reason than the fantastic space battle at the end. But I had forgotten about really, Cassian talks about some tough decisions he had to make, but people forget they actually showed him make a hard decision. He had to shoot a rebel spy to save the mission, and that's the kind of grittiness and quote unquote reality of being a rebel that I'm really excited to see, and it's interesting to see how they're kind of like you said with Mandalorian going down one sort of genre, and I love the concept of going down another genre road.
I if I can sneak in here real quick, I guess this is my thought, and Anthony, I'd be curious about your take on this. Is the fact that with the opportunity to go explore Cassian Andor on Disney Plus, what are your thoughts about recreating moments already established in Star Wars? This is a small thing, right? But in the comics, we get to learn how Cassian and K2SO meet for the first time. Is that a moment that you'd like to see reimagined in this Disney Plus series whenever it drops? Or do you think that's a trap?
To see Cassian, how Cassian met K2SO?
Right. Like, do you think it's worth to recreate that moment on Disney Plus, or do you think it should be just all new brand stories? Let's not retread on what we've already seen or watched or read.
I'm confused because you say recreate, but we didn't necessarily see them meet in Rogue One, so that would be new. Like I liked the Han Solo Chewbacca meet in Solo. I didn't necessarily love the how Solo got his name part.
Agreed.
So I think it all depends on the execution of it all. There's a cool way that they come together. I'm into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm minded. I'm willing to give it a shot. I think there's a danger when you say like recreating scenes. I think there's a danger if it's too much of this was happening just off frame of this other famous moment you had. I can take a little bit of that, but I think it starts to become a little bit too navel gazing to do too much of that, and I think it should be done judiciously.
Yeah, I agree in that sense. There's a lot of, I think the common fan watches the movies and doesn't maybe explore Clone Wars or Rebels or the books or the comics, and so I think I had a buddy that was kind of confused there when he went to go see Solo in the movie theater because he was like, "Wait, Maul's alive? Like, what happened?" how is Maul alive? Like, where does this happen in the timeline? And so, you explain that to him. I mentioned, K2SO and Casseon meeting. There was a comic book, a single shot that explained how they met up. But
right.
But to the common fan who's not invested in, and obviously I'm not throwing a dagger at you or anything. I know you're very knowledgeable, but I'm just saying, like, to my buddy who didn't know about Maul, he doesn't know how these two characters met in the comics. So, can you reintroduce a moment like that for the common fan who might only watch Disney Plus but doesn't want to go into the comics or the books? I guess that was the point I was trying to make.
Oh, I gotcha. I don't know about that comic. I know there was a Cassian comic. I'm guessing that's where this was. There is so much Star Wars storytelling. I have to admit, I don't keep up with all of it. I do write about other movies and other TV shows and other projects.
It's impossible.
So
Yeah.
there's so much Star Wars that I couldn't possibly consume all of it. I think I'll name drop on you a little bit here, but I remember interviewing Lawrence Kasdan, and I asked him a kind of like a mythology question that was a little bit of a deep dive into the lore of Star Wars that's grown up over the past few decades. And he said, I don't know a whole lot about Star Wars. I just wrote most of the movies. And I sometimes feel the same way. There are times where I forget that Ahsoka is a Togruta alien, and I accidentally called her a Twi'lek. And I apologize. All I can do is say mea culpa for that. But yeah, I think you have to guess that a much more limited number of fans are going to be reading that origin story in the comic. And I think Star Wars is getting into a little bit of a dangerous area where everything is interlocked.
Yep.
Every single story, every comic, every novel, and then they have like offshoot short stories, like from a certain point of view that they say, oh, well, these are just, this is a little more whimsical, and we're just going to allow these to stand on their own. I think there's the danger if you're going to go back and do things like retell the story of Cassian meeting K2. If there is a comic that already tells that, do we need to see it? It better be cool if we see it on TV or in a series.
A lot of lasers.
But yeah, you can. The problem is like you start to fill this space that's between the different movies and novels and stories, and it starts to fill in, and that's a risk.
Yeah, I totally agree. Pete, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I think if there's any scene that I would like to see recreated from a non-live action, it would be the Maul Kenobi lightsaber fight scene in the desert from Rebels. And the challenge with that is, I get it. It's so iconic, and it was so well done, and it was probably some of the best Star Wars I've seen in animation. But I would love to see Ewan McGregor and Ray Park recreate that scene.
Well, hey, while we have a moment in the show, and again, we're joined with Vanity Fair's Anthony Breznican, the lead entertainment writer, not the lead entertainment reporter over there at Vanity
I got to
Fair.
correct you. I'm just a film correspondent there. There are other really great movie and TV writers there. So I have to beg off of the lead thing. I'm just a film writer.
Okay, all right. Well, we were trying to give the guy a promotion.
I don't want
It's
to
all right.
alienate my new colleagues. They're all really cool people.
No, it's totally fine. The point is, though, Anthony, you have launched a new show of yourself. It's called Still Watching The Mandalorian. You're with Jill Robinson. And can you just talk to us about what we should expect when we watch, give your show a listen?
Well, I'm sure the people listening to this know Joanna Robinson. She's a podcast star. She's a fantastic Vanity Fair film writer. She's been there for a long time. And I've been a big admirer of hers for a very long time. Admirer. I've been envious. I've cheered for her. And I'm so happy to be on the same team with her. And she is on the Little Gold Men podcast and the Still Watching podcast. And when she said she wanted to do a Still Watching series on The Mandalorian and that she wanted me to be a part of it, I was overjoyed. I'm happy to play Chewie to her Han. Whenever she wants to go on a journey into the galaxy far, far away. And we dropped our first preview episode yesterday people can listen to it now. There are no spoilers in there. We're talking about the design and the approach and the theme of Mandalorian and sort of what you might want to watch or prep for in advance of the show. So if you want a little primer, you can find that over on Vanity Fair or Apple Podcasts. And she's like, I tweeted about this today. Like, I got a new job at Vanity Fair, and I feel like I got a brand new like best friend. She's really fun to talk to. We geek out about all sorts of different movies together, and she's got a different perspective on things for me, so that's really fun too. We're like a Siskel and Ebert who get along. So, my wife's a pretty harsh judge of my podcast appearances, and she really enjoyed it, and I hope everyone will. We're going to be putting one out after each episode of The Mandalorian, and we'll have interviews with some of the key players, some of the actors, and some of the creative talents. So I hope people enjoy it and give it a shot.
We'll have to keep an eye open for the review.
Yeah, I can speak for. I listened to it today. It was really good, and it did. As if the excitement level wasn't high enough for this show, you really got me excited and really looking forward to it. But is finally, I think one of the last questions I'd like to ask you is, after all this anticipation leading up to Disney Plus and leading up to The Mandalorian, how are you managing kind of your own expectations, and what do you've seen a little bit of it from the press clips and your conversations. What do you think we have to look forward to? What's ahead of us as Star Wars fans as it relates to The Mandalorian?
What's ahead of you? I mean, I have very high expectations, and the peril of high expectations is it's sometimes hard to meet them. But it looks cool. It seems fun. I'm curious how much the story will evolve and change as it goes on. Like, how much have we seen in the teasers versus what's yet to come? It seems like they're being pretty ambitious, and I hear there are lots of twists and reveals that will be coming up. Lots of oh my god moments. So I hope it lives up to that promise. It's a big promise to make.
Well, we just want to say from really the bottom of our heart, and on behalf of all the live guests here with us tonight, just thanks for joining us for this first episode of Streaming Star Wars. And if we have time, Anthony, I know we've had you already for quite some time, but is there a chance you take one or two questions from the live chat? We totally understand if you're not able to make it happen.
No, I can take some. I'm happy to.
All right, Pete, if you want to sift for one, I'm going to sift for one as well. We have several, actually. Like, we got way too many. Holy cow. This is ridiculous. We got
hit me with I want to say something here that I want to thank all the people who read my stories and who share them. It's a real honor to be on your show tonight and talk about this work. I don't take it for granted. I especially don't take it for granted because there was a time earlier in the summer when I wasn't sure I'd get to keep doing this. And then I ended up here at a really wonderful magazine, and they were like, "Yeah, go for it. Keep on keeping on." And so for all the Star Wars fans out there who like and share my stories, just thank you. So I'm happy to take their questions. I'll take them all. You hit me.
Very cool.
Well, Anthony, I have one here from Rick Villanueva, and he says, "How does it feel knowing and holding on to certain information before things get published in Vanity Fair or even back further in your career? How have you dealt with, especially because you're as big a fan, I think, as all of us? How do you manage knowing stuff before the rest of the world? And does it also, I'll add to Rick's question and say, does it change the way you see the films or the shows in this case?
Inevitably, it changes the way you see them. I mean, I'm not a film critic, and I'm somebody who talks to the people who make these things. I tell the story of the storytellers, and I think once you hear what somebody is intending or what they're trying to do, you're just naturally going to be a little more sympathetic to it. But that's how I'm wired as a journalist. Is I'm curious what's going on inside their minds and what the strategy is. So yeah, learning about how the process goes and what goes into it. Yeah, I mean, I have my judgments about the work, but I also I tend to try to keep an open mind. And I think, when I know secrets or reveals or things like that, I feel like that gif of the little girl who goes like, scrunches her face up and gives a great big smile. Like, I've got a little thing. But mostly I get excited because I think, oh man, when I put this out here, it's going to be like giving a little birthday present to everybody, you know? And that's the thing that it makes me the happiest is writing these stories. There's so much news that we consume that makes us miserable or makes us worried or afraid. And I love being able to provide a little bit of dessert or something that's a little bit of a release or an escape. And if we can, journey into the galaxy far, far away, maybe we can steel ourselves for the return to uh, our own flawed galaxy. Um, but I love. The thing is, like, I don't really I don't like to spoil things, and I actively try to avoid that. If there's a twist or something in the plot, I'm not here to ruin that for the filmmakers. I might like to talk about it after the fact, when the audience is ready to hear it. But mostly, I feel very lucky to be able to get up close to this stuff, and I don't take it for granted.
You know, something we haven't talked about, Anthony, and we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on this, but Benioff and Weiss no longer involved with Star Wars. We got a Twitter
Sure.
question here from Todd Hoffman. He's asking you, "Hey, Anthony, thanks for being on the show. Is Ryan Johnson's trilogy dead?" What's your viewpoint? I mean, do you get the sense that we're just going to wait to hear about Ryan's project just because we want the focus to be on Disney Plus right now, or is there anything that you're hearing that you'd like to tell fans, hey, just calm down?
I think there's clearly a house cleaning happening at Lucasfilm. You're seeing a lot of projects that were announced going away, like Benioff and Weiss. The Benioff and Weiss thing takes me a little by surprise. I don't think it happened like in over the matter of a couple of days, but as recently as April, or actually as recently as May, when Bob Iger said this was the next Star Wars film that was coming, uh, that seemed to be freight training toward release. So something happened between May and now that made them say, no, we're not doing it. And that wouldn't be the story. The story they were confident enough about to be moving on, uh, a year ago, less than half a year ago. And so uh, I'm not quite sure exactly what's going on there, but we're hearing, Kevin Feige is going to be producing a Star Wars movie. All I know about Ryan Johnson is that he says it's still happening. And when the Benioff and Weiss news came out, I was emailing with my contacts at Lucasfilm, and I asked, like, what is on the horizon now? And they, listed the various shows among the things that have been announced, and Cassie and Andor and Obi-Wan, and they didn't mention Ryan Johnson. And I said, "Oh, should I read something into that this isn't happening?" They were like, "No, we just left him off. Sorry, by accident, because that project is still developing." So I take that to be that it's still a possibility. I don't think anything is guaranteed. I think there's a real recalibration happening, but I do feel that they have a sense of where they're going to go, and we're going to probably find out. I would guess, and again, I'm guessing here, they're going to wait to clear the decks. They're going to wait for Mandalorian to take off. They're going to wait for Rise of Skywalker to take off. And then after Rise of Skywalker, we're likely to get a sense of what's to come down the road.
Very cool. Well, Anthony, just want to again say thank you so much for joining us here on the
Sure.
first episode of Streaming Stars. It's been a lot of fun just to not just hear you talk about Star Wars, but just to get to know you. Super cool, dude. It's really fun when you said thank you to all your readers. I want to say thank you just for making the content that you do, because it's a thrill to read your content. So glad that you're at Vanity Fair. You seem super happy, and just glad that you get to keep telling these stories, because you're the go-to dude. Like, the first time we hear about a lot of new characters or the new ships or a new show, it's you, man. And just thanks for being genuine. It's really awesome to know you.
That's really nice of you to say. I do care about this stuff, and I hope that the reason I get this access is because they feel I handle it well. These people put a lot of work into it, and then they've got to talk about it, and you hope it's in the hands of somebody who also cares about it. Yeah, and also cares about it to the degree that they'll ask hard questions. So it means a lot to me that it means something to you and to everybody listening to this. So thanks for reading. I mean, anybody who writes anything or puts anything out in the world knows that the internet can also punch you in the stomach and tell you that you suck. So I really appreciate the high fives.
Anthony, we appreciate it. And you know what, Anthony, we're going to ask you to send us to break. So one more time, just everybody know that still that we have the show coming out here, still watching The Mandalorian. It's Joanna Robinson. It's Anthony Breznican. You can find that out on Vanity. Be sure you check that out. And again, thank you so much for joining us. We're actually, Anthony, if you don't mind, we want you to send us to break. So could you just say one more time who you are, what show that our viewers are watching right now, and wish them may the force be with you. And then we're going to go to break. How's that sound?
All right, sounds good. All right, so do you just want me to say, I'm Anthony Breznican. It's been a pleasure to be with you guys. I work at Vanity Fair and write about Star Wars, and may the force be with you.
Works for us.
All wings report in. Brand new Beyond the Blast Door collector pins are now in stock. Help spread the word about the Beyond the Blast Door Star Wars conversation by picking up a brand new exclusive show pin. Pins are only $8. Order and pay online at beyondtheblastdoors.com. Movies, TV, comics, toys, cosplay. Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars conversation. All wings.
Tuesday on an all-new Around the Galaxy, Pete Fletcher speaks to Dominic Pace, a.k.a. Gecko the Bounty Hunter from The Mandalorian on Disney+. Catch Around the Galaxy on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you find podcasts. Follow them on Twitter at ATGcast or on the web at www.atgcast.com. Around the Galaxy, the Star Wars fan talk show.
We are back here on streaming Star Wars Episode 1. It is November 8th, 2019, and we just spent the better part of, 40 minutes with Anthony Breznican. He is a film writer for Vanity Fair, as he corrected me. I was proud to give him the promotion, but nonetheless, we are back here on streaming Star Wars, and I'm Mo. He is Fletcher, and before we move on to the show, I guess it's going to be a longer show than we anticipated, and I don't think anyone's unhappy about it, Pete. How cool was that interview?
It was great getting his point of view and hearing what he had to say. Anthony's he's got such a unique perspective on Star Wars. And I said it at the end there, and I've spoken with him in the past, and he really he's as much a fan as any of us. And that's what makes, I think when I read Anthony Breznican's work in Vanity Fair and before when he was at Entertainment Weekly, it felt like he was like living the dream that we all have of having that kind of access and just being a Star Wars fan. And it comes through, and his passion is real. And I have to say, I am so excited and so happy for him for having come into. I got my son here.
No, Jackson, I call you out. You got to be on the shot.
Jack, come on, you got to be on the shot,
Jackson,
buddy. Get over here.
You can't
People want to see you. Come here.
Gosh. Oh, he's shy. He's shy. Here, we got to go.
Say goodnight, buddy.
Oh my gosh.
So, but Anthony is he really is truly a Star Wars fan first. And we're I'm so happy he's back and bringing us the Star Wars news.
Absolutely. And I really appreciated his candidness during that interview. He answered all of our questions, and that was the super cool thing. To give you a little bit of a background on when we were prepping for tonight's show, Pete and I were asking ourselves, are we asking too much? We were trying to do maybe a 10-minute interview. We sent over 6 questions. We were hopeful we'd get like 3. He's like, no, ask them all. We even asked him more questions than we originally planned, and he was so gracious to give us his time. So a big thanks again to Anthony for joining us. And be sure you check out their show, still watching, The Mandalorian. It's Joanna Robinson with Anthony. And we'll have more information on that after the show. We'll put that down in the description below. But we have a new segment here, Pete, and how about you let the good people know what it's all about?
Well, so I'm glad you brought it up. And actually, let's throw it out to Twitter. If you guys can think of a good name for this segment, we'd love to hear it. But each week, David and I are going to pick 4 things that stood out to us in each episode that we watched. The most recent episode, we're going to take 2 from him and 2 from me. But this week, since there's been no episode of Mandalorian yet, and we'll do this for Clone Wars, we'll do it for Casseon, we'll do it for Kenobi, we'll do it for every series that comes out. But each week we're going to pick 4 things that really stood out to us. And the only thing we've had is the hype. We've had the trailers, we've had the articles. And so, live on the chat, we want to hear from you what stood out, but we're going to give you 4 pieces. I'm going to give you 2. Dave is going to give you two. We're going to go back and forth on it. And Dave, I guess I'll start. Like the thing that's really stood out to me the most in the Mandalorian content that we've seen has been whether it's been mostly the fact that there's so many alien species that seem to be back in the series, back in front and center. One of the things I think we've heard as a negative around the sequel the trilogy is that it's been too human centered. We haven't seen enough cool new aliens, and it looks to me, whether it's the Blurg or anything else, we're seeing aliens, we're seeing new creatures. That cantina scene looks huge.
Yeah, I really agree with you, and it just we talked about diversity earlier on the show about what we get with Fennec, right? She's going to be the first Asian American character. That is maybe not the lead character, but she's like at the forefront of the show, and that's really cool first in diversity. But it's also cool to see the diversity of different species, and in that same token too, and also how it connects through canon elsewhere in Star Wars. The fact that you're seeing species that you met in Clone Wars, that you met in Rebels, that you met in the original trilogy, in the prequels. Heck, if a Gungan shows up, I mean, that is a bold move.
How about a bounty hunting Gungan? How great would that be?
He'd be a sharpshooter for sure. Great aim. They're very well balanced. Let me tell you, the Gungan ballet I heard is one hell of a show to take in when you are on Naboo. I like that a lot. I'm really excited for. I keep calling it a reek. It's probably not a reek, but it's like that big monstrous thing that is dragging the Mandalorian in the one shot we see in the trailer. That's not CGI. That's an actual puppet, and I'm like, how the heck did they pull that off? Did you catch that initially? Do you really?
No, I thought it was CG. I mean, the only thing that I caught initially, the blurgs running along the canyon rather looked like they were, not negative puppets, but certainly looked like something that was very different, very real and not CG. So I'm excited to see that coming back.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Now we go from alien species, which I agree with you. I mean, I think we got. I'm really excited to see that Twi'lek character that we've seen teased a few times, getting to know her. But the fight choreography, and this is what really excites me when we're talking about the Mandalorian, because you don't bring in actresses like Gina Carano if you're not going to do a big fight sequence with a lot of choreography. And to Gina's credit, she is not known for her acting ability. I think she was in, I think Deadpool is the movie that I know her from. And I think she did like WWE stuff or whatnot. But the way she's spoken about her experience on set of The Mandalorian and working with John and working with Dave, it sounds like maybe they've tapped into something, and she's really excited to show you what she's done. I think she feels like she wants to prove herself on this. But what we've seen in the trailer and the TV spots, not so much her doing action, it's really been the Mandalorian, whether that's going through a doorway and shooting up and punching stormtroopers, if it's pulling in that one guy through the doorway and letting the door slice him in half. Bill Burr's character. Can we talk about this guy for a little while? Who the heck is this guy that has a shoulder gun, Pete? I mean,
you know who else had a shoulder gun? Dash Rendar. Is there any chance that we're going to see Dash Rendar from Shadows of the Empire in this show? How phenomenal would that be?
I think it would be exceptional. And, it's like what we talked about with Anthony. Like, it would be like a cool reward for the fans, but also do you disrupt the memories that fans have with Dash with previous stories told? Is this going to go ahead.
Yeah, and that's kind of my third point for us is the pulling. What I noticed in some of this first stuff going around was connections to other pieces of canon, whether it was the speeder bikes from Return of the Jedi or the droid ship from Clone Wars. What it looks to me, the thing that I'm excited to see is where we're going to pull from various parts of the Star Wars canon beyond just connecting one movie to the next.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I think that we're going to get a lot of fun Easter eggs thanks to Dave Filoni. And like you already mentioned, and we talked about this in the trailer review, it's like, you're watching the Mandalorian trailer and you're expecting just to see Empire and and the Mandalorian and some bounty hunters, but then out of nowhere there's a droid ship that cruises over the smog, and then you see these battle droids coming down, and there's this woman crying, and you're just like, what is going on? This isn't the right timeline at all. And then you're able to start connecting.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's a flashback. Maybe we're going to see a young Mando. Does the Mando take off his helmet? And so when you create this connectivity, which, okay, so something that I think is maybe more accurate to compare to, The Force Awakens, when you hear Kylo Ren mention to Hux that maybe he should make a clone army. Like those little things go a super long way. I hope we get a lot of that in The Rise of Skywalker. Here in The Mandalorian, though, I think it's a great opportunity to connect that to connect all these eras together. But to dig into the Clone Wars, if we got to see Clone War, like the battle, happen in this series in a flashback, that would be incredible because we never really got to be on the battleground. Like, I think a lot of people thought Attack of the Clones was going to be that. It wasn't. And how cool would it be to see troops running around, blowing up, jumping on droids, like you were playing an online round on Battlefront 2. It would just be epic. I mean, I hate to use that word epic, but it would be epic.
Well, Red 5 Mom in the chat right now just said and Legend stuff too, and I'm not a Legends expert by any means, but I think there's certainly some of those nods that we'll see. We've seen them. The first and most obvious and biggest nod was to Thrawn when they brought him back and made him canon. But I imagine we'll see some of that as well. Some of the stuff from the stories that became the legends of Star Wars. Dave, what's your fourth point?
Yeah. My fourth point. What would be my fourth point? I was so confused because I was thinking about the Quarren. I meant to shout out the Quarren man who got his body cut in half on the last topic, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that would be the second species that you find on Mon Cala. Anyways, I digress. So my second one, to round the segment out, Pete, is definitely going to be the Imperial presence. And let me just say this. I'm not one of those guys that likes to go running around saying that the Empire did nothing wrong. I'm not like, one of these guys that wants to tell you that, that the Empire is innocent. But I am really excited to see how the Empire is represented faction-wise. This is a splintered Imperial, garrison. We don't know what we're getting in this show. What even planet that we're on here with the Mandalorian. And so what I'm most excited about to find out is, what does a splintered Empire look? What does leadership? We have this Moff Gideon guy. What's his role? He seems to be the bad guy, if there is a true bad guy in this series. Who does he command? 20 stormtroopers? Does he have a Star Destroyer? Are there multiple Star Destroyers? Is there only a couple of TIE fighters? And are we going to get? Are we going to see ourselves getting maybe new vehicles or new kinds of troopers? You mentioned in it the canon connections. I think we're talking about the Death Troopers back from Rogue One, and I think that's really cool. And I look forward to seeing how this all comes together, because that's been my question. How does the Empire truly fall to the wayside for the First Order to rise? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think this takes place 5 years after the fall of the Empire, and I think it's 5 years after the Battle of Yavin. So I think we're going to see some reference to Jakku. The Battle of Jakku. I think we're going to get some of the characters or some of the stories that we were alluded to in Chuck Wendig's Aftermath series. So I think we're definitely going to see that, because that makes those connections between the end of the Return of the Jedi and somewhere along the line all the way up to The Force Awakens. So I imagine we're going to hear some of that and see some of that. Maybe we'll see somebody like Ray Sloan. Maybe we'll see some of the characters from Battlefront 2. I would love to see Shriv, but I don't think he makes sense here. I do hope we see Shriv in Rise of Skywalker, though.
Did you hear me just yelling at you just now?
No, my headphones weren't working very well.
I just started yelling at you because I was like, you took what I was going to say, which I wanted to bring up, the fact that Ray Sloan would be a perfect character in this series, because she's a fan favorite from Lost Stars, a fan favorite from the Aftermath series, played a great role in Chuck Wendig's Aftermath series, so it would be a lot of fun to see her, and maybe not in Season 1, maybe she's at Season 2, and that'd be a lot of fun. Yep. Maybe Carl Weathers will direct the episode with Ray Sloan. We're not sure, but we'll find out. Hey, what do you think about the 4 topics here that we piece together, Pete and I, the 4 things that excite us the most about the upcoming first episode of The Mandalorian. Let us know in the live chat. Maybe you're not watching live. You're watching on the rewind. Let us know in the comments below. If you're listening on the podcast form in the Around the Galaxy playlist, make sure you tweet at us at StreamingAskW, and we will make sure that we will respond. But also, it's just our way of continuing this Star Wars conversation. I thought that was a lot of fun. And this is something, Pete, that you said. We think that we can let this thing evolve over time. At one point, it won't just be The Mandalorian that we'll get to talk about. Maybe we'll be lucky enough to have 2 shows, 3 shows to talk about at one time.
I think so. I think, we clearly have. It's a great time to be a Star Wars fan, right? We are. It's an embarrassment of riches, as I said to an older friend of mine. I said, if you told 7-year-old Pete that there was going to be Star Wars on television that wasn't the Ewok special, I'd be very excited, very excited about it. But this is great. We have a ton of stuff coming up.
Well, what do you want to do here, Pete? Do you want to step aside and take a 30-second break, or do we want to just go right into the recap of this week's poll and kind of go into a giveaway? Because I understand that we want to give away some free stuff. I think there's some people in the live chat that want to win some free swag. So what shall we do, Pete? Where shall we steer this ship?
Well, why don't we bring up the poll question, and then we'll jump to our giveaways. Everybody's been very patient. We've been on for a little bit over an hour, and I'm so thankful to all of you for joining us and sticking with us. So, David, you want to take us through the poll, or would you like me to do it?
Yeah, I can totally do it. I just want to shout out real quick, though, Pete, the fact that we have 21 people watching right now in the live chat, or whether watching live with us, but they're in the live chat with us as well. And we just really appreciate them being part of our Star Wars conversation. Okay, let's get to the poll. You see it on your screen. The question was, of all the Disney Plus Star Wars content that is confirmed so far, what show are you the most excited for? And we want to say a big thanks to almost 200 folks who took the time to vote in this first poll for streaming Star Wars. And, you take a look at this graphic, Pete, and the results, they're not shocking when you look at number 1, right? The number 1 choice, 46% of the vote, The Mandalorian. Kenobi gets 35%. The Clone Wars and Casseon Andor did not get a lot of love. Casseon Andor here comes in last place with a mere 6%. What's your takeaway by the way people voted here?
I think I'm not surprised that Mandalorian came in first. A consistent comment among people who voted was that it's the one thing that we know the most about, and so of course it's exciting and it's right around the corner. Kenobi is not a surprise to me either. I think a lot of people have been saying they would love to see the Kenobi series. They would love to see what's going on there. And I'm also frankly not surprised to see Cassian at the bottom. But what I am really excited about is the fact that Cassian is a sleeper, and I think that series is going to surprise us. I think that's going to be the series that is going to, because the expectations are low. I think, sort of frankly like Solo, right? When I was told that there was a Solo movie coming out, honestly, I was a little bit, I don't think I need to see that story. But I was so excited when it came out, and it was a better film than I expected, and it became, easily, among the top Star Wars films for me as a fan. I have kind of the same expectations for Cassian. Clone Wars, it was interesting to hear Anthony talk about how, Lucasfilm has kind of decided that we are in the not yet ready to promote Cassian or Clone Wars series. And I think when that comes back, I think the excitement of our Twitter feeds is going to get out of hand. I think people are going to be really excited about it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And when I think about the poll here, Cassie and I'm really mixed on. Depending on where you go on social media, there's some murmurs that there might be some issue with going from the script writing process to production. And we know that we're going to get Casseon at some point in 2020. I really want that series to be successful. And, I feel bad because when I brought up I brought up Clone Wars, right, to Anthony, and I just was like, if you were joining us at that point in the show, I was like, hey, is this a case where it's just 4 months away, and so is that why we're not hearing about it? And he said it's as simple as that. This is going to be Dave Filoni's. This is his love child. I mean,
yes.
we get one more chance to play around with Ahsoka in the near future. I think there's a lot of people hoping and praying that she would somehow make an appearance in The Mandalorian, so that he would be able to bring her bring her into the live action world. He's gone on record to say, if you're going to touch Ahsoka, you have to come through me as far as how you
Right.
utilize her. He gives the blessing, and he has not yet given that blessing. And so here's what I'm thinking. For me, the poll bums me out, and here we'll pull it up again one more time, just so everyone can remember where these 4 properties stand. For me, the Clone Wars is my most anticipated, only because I love the Clone Wars. It took a while for the series to really grasp its identity in the sense of gaining its consistency. But those lost episodes that now are officially season 6, not the final season, it's going to be this season number 7. That was where Clone Wars really found its stride, I'd say, Pete, because you had, the Sith alchemy coming in at the very end with Dooku and Palpatine, and you're exploring the Sifo-Dyas, which I love David Gilbert's idea. I will not take credit for his idea. If you watch Beyond the Blasters, you know that he will always bring up the fact that Attack of the Clones should have been a thriller suspense movie about the origins of the Sifo-Dyas and the creation of the Clone Army and a lot of Clone Wars, right? And so we got to explore that here in the animated series. I cannot wait to see how Dave Filoni and friends elevate this series in this last season, anywhere from 10 to 16 episodes. I don't think that we've got the official number locked in, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Don't know how long those episodes would be either. So I'm excited for that. But again, thanks to everyone for checking out that poll. It's just, isn't it just kind of cool to have this kind of interaction with people, Pete? I mean, it's pretty cool that we get to do this.
Oh, it's so much fun, and it's Star Wars is about sharing and the friends that love it, the sort of private club we all thought we were part of until the internet blew up. I mean, you guys saw my son was so excited about Star Wars he couldn't help but walk into screen here with us.
He was on the show. He was behind you for a good 20 minutes, right?
Yeah, I didn't even notice.
He was
I'm so into the show. I'm reading the chat. I'm trying to stay on top
Isn't
of
he
things.
supposed to be in bed? Isn't this the whole point?
Oh, it is way too late. I just hope he's in bed before I'm done. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to have a little talking to him about.
Now, Pete, I'll give you some advice.
But he's just excited about it, and that's kind of what it is. It's funny when before I came in here, I said, "All right, buddy, I'm gonna go to the show," and he said, "Go have fun. I hope it's a good one." So it's he's totally into it. So that's great.
I like how you're like, he better be in bed by the time I get off this show. It's like,
my dad yeah, I think that Darth Vader turned out not to be a great father, and I bet you if he had Luke and Leia, he would say those same things. I should be careful what I say, I think.
my dad would always joke, I would misbehave in public, and my dad would look at me, he goes, "Let me tell you, in public it's abuse, but at home it's discipline." I don't know if that translates well in 2019. I think it's funny. Live chat is just blowing up. I want to say big thanks to all 19 people that are in that live chat with us right now. We've seen our live audience tonight fluctuate as much as 25 or 30. So it's just really cool to see people in there. I see Red 5 Mom, we've mentioned. Gannon 136 is in there. Patrick, good to see him there. It's really cool. He actually has this prediction about Moff Gideon. Maybe we'll get to that in a little bit. But Pete, I just we're talking about how cool it is to have this connection with folks, and it harkens back just to how you and I met. The wonderful social media world, Facebook allowing us to meet. I think it's time. Let's give something away. Can we do that? Let's give something away.
Let's do that. So, Dave, we're gonna do two things actually here. So for the giveaway for the Mandalorian Black Series figure, here's what we're gonna do. We need you to comment below in the live feed or the replay sometime before next Friday, with the hashtag Mando Bounty. Right, that's one entry. If you share this video on Twitter with the hashtag Mando Bounty, that's another entry. And if you're listening to this replay on Around the Galaxy on the podcast, share the podcast episode on Twitter with the hashtag Mando Bounty. That's 3 ways for you to enter. One more time, say Mando Bounty in the live chat below us, retweet or repost this episode on Twitter with the hashtag Mando Bounty. And if you're listening on Around the Galaxy, post about this particular podcast on your Twitter feed, Around the Galaxy, with hashtag Mando Bounty. So But I do think that there is an opportunity for us to give away at least something tonight. And I think what we'll do is I happen to have here a a Night of Ren pop, the exclusive GameStop version. And what I want to do is I want to give that away to the people in the chat. And here's how we're going to do it. So our producer who's managing the chat for us is going to have to be on top of things for us, and we'll watch it too. So here's the deal. Here's what you got to do to win that pop.
Hey Pete, real quick, Pete,
Yeah,
real quick.
yeah.
I'm gonna let you
Before
gather your
I
thoughts.
give it away.
Before you give it away, we want to build up some suspense. This is really excited. Yeah, make sure you're thumbs upping this episode. Come on, people, only 16. Let's do this. No, I do want to say a big thanks. Steve is in the live chat. He's a patron over at Beyond the Blast Doors. I know we have some Patreon supporters for Around the Galaxy in the live chat as well. And Steve's been going through the live chat and offering, just continuing that conversation and letting us know about certain questions that you guys were throwing out there. So big kudos to him helping us out. We got a few other folks helping us out in the live chat as moderators, so big thanks to them. He will comment down there with our email address, and that is how you will get us all your information for the giveaway. So I'm going to step aside. I just want to make sure that we gave Steve a shout out because this was his first time moderating for us.
Okay, so we're gonna watch the chat because the first one to give us the right answer to this trivia question is going to be the winner of this pop. We're watching eagerly. Here we go. Somebody's gonna win this. And here's the trivia question. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Of course you're ready. All right. So what is the first and last name of the character played by Carl Weathers in Rocky? Oh, it's not Grief Karga. Who is Carl Weathers playing in the Rocky series? Come on. We're waiting. We're looking at the chat. We're waiting.
Exciting. 21 watching right now, episode 1 of...
There it is. There's our winner.
That took no time at all. Holy cow. We got it with 2 Med 2, Apollo Creed. Oh, and then Charlie came in there. Ms. P was right behind.
Bam.
Todd the Mandalorian. Silver Age Dave. Oh, my God. Everybody's talking about it. Oh, my gosh. Rocky, you're acting like a damn fool. All right. Hey, so we got a winner, huh? That was great.
2 Med 2. So... 2 Med, what you got to do is you have to send an email to streamingsw@gmail.com. streamingsw@gmail.com. Give us your info. We'll mail you out this actual real life pop. We'll get it out the door to you right now. So, well, not right now because it's late and the post office isn't open. We'll get it out shortly. So, and those of you who were selected during the Follow Us Twitter campaign that we ran the last week and a half, look for your little thank yous to go out this week. I think some of you were on the chat with us as well. So thank you all for being a part of our social media community as well as being with us tonight.
I like we're getting some Chubbs references to Happy Gilmore, which I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't realize that Carl Weathers played Chubbs until like 2 weeks ago. I never drew that connection. I knew him as Apollo Creed. I knew him in those fighter pants. And I now know him as a character in Star Wars. Like that, if you're asking me, like one of the actors I'm so excited about in the series, it's got to be him. Got to have Apollo Creed in there. Everyone is freaking out in the live chat. I love how everyone is now just telling me all their favorite characters, telling us all their favorite characters that Carl Weathers has played. This is a lot of fun. Todd the Mandalorian having a good time as well. So it's just another example of why we love having this live show. We like having you in the live chat because we get to have conversations like this, but we also get to give away prizes just to say thank you. We would not be doing this show if we did not get the support ahead of time from folks saying, we'd like to see Pete and David team up. And this is something that, Pete and I can tell each other all we want, that this is going to be a really fun project and the show is going to be a lot of fun, but it's not successful unless people watch and engage us. Because if not, we could just have a Skype date. We could be just 2 dudes on Skype, and that'd be fine. But
sure,
this has a little bit more flair. Either way, your son's going to do the moonwalk behind you. So, I don't
know. I'm gonna have to work on, maybe got to put a lock on his bedroom door or something. That was a little out of control.
So
but
there's like a dog gate. I have a dog gate that I sometimes use for the cats. Random fact here: I have a cat named Paul McCatney. Anyways, do they make those fences for kids? And how tall do you have to make? I feel like Jackson is very crafty.
Nothing's gonna stop Jack. I feel like yeah, he's gonna get to wherever he wants to go, which couldn't make me happier. So
that's so funny. Well, hey, again, congratulations to 2Med2 for winning the free giveaway here in the live show. And again, Pete mentioned it. We'll mention it one more time. Comment down below, tweet this episode, and also go visit Around the Galaxy and share that podcast version, and you'll have your
hashtag Mando Bounty. You can win with hashtag Mando Bounty.
So, Pete, we've gone on now for almost an hour and a half. We're going to close things down. But before we do that, before we end the show, we have to talk about what's next. And this is something we're going to do every episode. We're going to look into the future. What is next for Disney Plus? And I guess if we're being, I don't know how original this is, but Pete, I guess what is next for the series Disney Plus is going to be The Mandalorian. We're going to get The Mandalorian on Tuesday, November 12th. And that first episode, it's going to be directed by Dave Filoni. So that's what I'm excited about. And that does kind of tie a bow on it. Dave Filoni is getting his first opportunity to direct live action. And I was one of those folks that when they mentioned that they were going to do standalone movies, I thought Dave Filoni should be the first person to direct a standalone. He has experience directing in the animation world with Clone Wars and Rebels and executive producing the Resistance show. But give him a live-action movie. This seems to be a great spot for him to learn. It's like Pat Mahomes with the Chiefs, right? His first year in the NFL, he's studying under Alex Smith, and now he's arguably the best quarterback in the league. Dave Filoni gets to study under Jon Favreau, arguably one of the best directors in Hollywood right now. So it's going to be really cool to see how he does. Does his involvement with the first episode as director give you a lot of excitement, or are you hyped in general? You're getting that first episode.
Well, I think you said that Dave's going to learn a lot from John, but I think John could learn a lot about storytelling from Dave, who learned it from George. So I think it's a great combination. It's such a great. I'm so excited for Dave Filoni. I mean, he brought us so many great years of animated Star Wars and told some of the best Star Wars stories there are, and now he's going to get to do it in live action. And we're going to start with him on Tuesday. When we all get our Disney Plus rolling at first thing in the morning, we're going to watch The Mandalorian. And so what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to watch The Mandalorian. There's 2 episodes next week. There's one on the 12th with directed by Dave Filoni, and then there's the one that's coming out on the 15th next Friday, directed by Rick Famuyiwa. I'm sure I'm screwing up his name, but there's going to be 2 episodes next week, and our next episode is next Friday, November 15th. So we'll be talking about the premiere episode and the second episode next week. We'll be talking about what we liked about the show, what we got out of it, what our initial reactions were, where we think it's going, and most importantly, we want to keep the conversation going with you, and we're going to want to get it from you. It's sort of like a live version of I don't know if you watch Walking Dead, and there's the after show for that. There was Game of Thrones after show. That's exactly what we want to be doing for you here. We want to watch the show, suck it up, and soak it in, and then talk about it. And we want to talk about it with all of you, and we want you guys to be joining us for it. And hopefully you enjoyed this evening's approach, and we're going to take the same tack next week.
Yeah, I thought you did all right.
Well, We pulled through, right?
I think we did all right. It was, it's a real joy to be doing this, and it's fun. Everyone is offering praise and the live chat. I'm sounding really egotistical right now. It's not. I mean, they're being very kind. They're saying kind words in the live chat, and it's cool to know that a lot of hard work went into just this first episode, getting us off on the right foot. I think. There's a lot. I'm just really proud. I'm really thankful that Anthony was able to join us. I really like the conversation we had tonight. I like how when we approach our conversation, and this is whether we're on this show, on Around the Galaxy, on Beyond the Blast Doors, Pete, I just think and maybe it's just because you and I both have writing experience, like journalistic experience, but there's always like a prompt, and then we're like, well, here's the reasons why we like or don't like that. But wouldn't it be cool if this happened? And it's fun to be able to share that with everyone here tonight and every time we get together for streaming Star Wars. So Patrick gives us an 8 out of 10. He says that I need a volume boost, But if I give myself a volume boost, I give everybody a boost, and then I'm booming and blowing your speakers like I did when I was laughing through that interview with Anthony. But that's okay. That's something that I'll work on for later. Pete, anything that you want to say to the good people? Do we need to tell them one more time how to enter that contest so that they can win that sweet fig?
Yeah, so please retweet this episode. Copy that link, share that link, put it out there on Twitter, and use the hashtag Mando. What was it? Mando Bounty. Do that. If you're listening on Around the Galaxy, tweet about this show with the hashtag Mando Bounty. Say Mando Bounty in the bottom here, and you will be given a chance. And next week, Charlie Skywalker just put it up there. Next week, we will announce who wins that figure, and we'll probably have something else to give away next week. Yep. And we're going to have a new poll question, which is going to hit on Monday morning. So look for that, and we'll talk to that as well.
Sounds good. Well, Pete, looking forward to it. And you have a upcoming episode of Around the Galaxy. Do you want to take a moment real quick and plug that?
Sure. Tuesday, we are going to have a gentleman named Dominic Pace. Dominic has been doing the rounds on the podcast, but Dominic is living the actor's dream, and he's got a small part in the Mandalorian that he's playing a bounty hunter called The Gecko, and he makes his very first appearance in the very first episode on Tuesday. So if you listen to Around the Galaxy on Tuesday, you'll hear him talk to me a bit about what went into playing that role and what the magic meant to him. He's a really great guy, sweet guy, doing a lot with this opportunity, and he really could use all of our support. Great guy, but check him out on Tuesday on Around the Galaxy. He'll be joining me then.
Sounds awesome. Always looking forward to that. And I wonder if we could ever get him to come up on streaming Star Wars. I wonder if that's a real possibility. Do you think that could happen?
With
Ammo and Fletcher, do you think that's there's an opportunity there? Well, we'll see. We'll see what we can do. There's a chance. We don't know. Big thanks to everyone in the live. Yeah, there's a possibility. And just to clarify, to participate in the contest, you have to comment with the hashtag Mando Bounty in the comment section, not the live chat. Okay, so make sure when we stop the live show, we're going to stop the live show. You need to make sure that you refresh your page as soon as possible. That comment section will be available, and you need to comment with hashtag Mando Bounty. That is that is the way that you enter. So if you comment in the live chat with that, we really appreciate that. We love the enthusiasm. But to officially enter the contest, you're going to have to comment down below in the comment section as soon as we end this episode, just because it's not always guaranteed that YouTube is going to allow us to see the live chat comments after we stop streaming. So we want to make sure that you get into the contest. Don't want you screwed out of an opportunity to be involved with that, so make sure you do that.
Share it, tweet it, subscribe, ring the bell, all those things that I see the kids that are on YouTube that my kids are watching say. Ring that bell.
Really, just give it to everybody. Your grandmother, your aunt twice removed. Just whore it out. We're just trying to tell everybody about Star Wars. Fletcher, it's been a lot of fun, bud. Thanks so much.
Same to you, man. Looking forward to watching next week and getting on with you again Friday night. It'll be 10 o'clock.
It'll be a lot of fun. And yes, Royal Farm Boy Beyond the Blast Doors will be live Sunday morning. I think we'll have Jesse with me. That's not for certain, but there will at least be a show this Sunday, 10 a.m. Central Time. No, I'm sorry, 11 a.m. Central Time, 12 Eastern. On the Beyond the Blast Doors YouTube channel. One more reminder, we just want to tell you, Streaming SW, at Streaming SW on Twitter to follow us, follow the show, updates on the show, new news for Disney Plus, and announcements regarding guests, giveaways, and polls. Follow us on Twitter at Streaming Star Wars. And again, you can find us live every Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, here on the Beyond the Blast Doors YouTube channel. It's also where you can find the episodes on the rewind if you want to watch us. If you want to just listen, you want to have that maybe in the car going to and from work or going over to families during the holidays. Okay, well, get on it now. You need to make sure you're subscribing to Around the Galaxy now if you're not already. If you're not, you're late to the game. Get over there. Pete does a great job. Make sure you're over there because the podcast version of the show will be in his stream. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for episode 1 of Streaming Star Wars. It was an absolute blast. We will see you next week, and may the Force be with you, because what else would we send you away with? It's a Star Wars show, and you're part of it. Streaming Star Wars, Ammo and Fletcher.